Hello everyone, welcome to another wonderful session of Prep Class Study Hacks. My name is Tutor Olalekon Israel, and on today's episode, I will be taking you through some cheat codes for WAEC English objectives. Now, these codes will make answering correctly WAEC English objectives questions easy for you. So, pay attention as we go through them together. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Turn on the post notification so you can be notified whenever we upload any new content. Alright, let's begin. Now, unlike letters and essays that have always been problematic for candidates, a candidate can score nearly all the marks in the objectives section. Yes, unlike letters and essays that have always been problematic for candidates, a candidate can score nearly all the marks in the objectives section. The first and most important thing to know when answering WAEC objective questions is the timing of the questions and the number of questions. A proper knowledge of this will help candidates know how to approach the questions. Now, if you do not know that a particular paper is for 2 hours, you will know how to spend time on each question. So it is important for you to know the amount of time allotted for those questions and the number of questions. So, when you know the amount of time allotted for that section, the objective section, and the number of questions in that section, you know how to divide your time for each question. So, the first and most important thing to know when answering WAEC objective questions is the timing of the questions and the number of questions. Now, a proper knowledge of this will help candidates know how to approach the questions. Moving on, WAEC English objectives usually consist of 80 multiple choice questions. WAEC English objectives usually consist of 80 multiple choice questions, and the time allotted to this section is 1 hour. Multiple choice questions are questions that come with options, and WAEC English objectives usually consist of 80 multiple choice questions to be answered within an hour. Now, if you calculate properly, this basically means that for each of the 80 questions, a candidate has approximately 45 seconds. For each of the 80 questions, a candidate has approximately 45 seconds. So you have to learn to be very judicious with your time. You basically have just 45 seconds to spend on each question. So you have to learn to be very judicious with your time. So, always learn to spend even lesser than the amount of time on each question. Learn to spend lesser than that time so you have extra time to go over your work again. Alright, the next thing is always read and understand the instructions before every section. Always read and understand the instructions before every section. Now, if you have seen some WAEC English past questions, you would notice that the questions come in sections. You might have questions 1 for one section, question 1 to 10 in one section with a different instruction. Question 11 to 10, another section with another different instruction. So, always read and understand the instructions before every section. For example, an instruction for a section could be select the word that is nearest in meaning to the underlined word in the sentences. Now, this can be a sample word instruction for a particular section. Select the word that is nearest in meaning to the underlined word in the sentences. You have to understand this instruction. If you fail to read and understand the instruction, you will most likely have difficulties answering questions in that section correctly because you do not understand the instruction. So, if an instruction is telling you to choose what? The nearest in meaning, you have to know the meaning of the word first before you can select the nearest in meaning to that word. So, always read and understand the instructions before every section. Alright, moving on. Now, read questions carefully. Now, you have read the instructions. That is good. Now, read the questions carefully. Now, as it might seem like the time for answering each objective question, which is 45 seconds, is short. It might seem like the time is short, but still, it is important to read the questions carefully. Now, due to examination situation tension and pressure, most candidates tend to rush while reading the examination questions. This can result in the candidates skipping some very important or vital details in the questions and then result in them missing those questions. Now, when you rush to read a question, you might actually skip some important details. If you skip those important details, it will lead to you choosing the wrong answer. So it is very important to read examination questions carefully. Don't rush. Even as it seems like the time is short, it is not short. Don't rush while reading the questions. Take your time to read the questions. Read the questions carefully and understand the questions so you can answer the questions correctly. Okay, moving on. Always answer easy questions first. This cannot be overemphasized. Always answer easy questions first. Why? This trick does not only work for WAEC English objective questions. No. This trick works for almost every examination. I can even say it works for every examination. Always answer easy questions first. Now, in WAEC examinations, there are questions that you will come across and know their answers immediately at a glance. It is normal. There are some questions you will see and at a glance you already know their answers. So, while there are others that will require you to dwell on them before you can actually answer them. So, always answer the easy questions first. Now, in a situation like this, what is advisable is to answer the easy questions first. Whenever you come across any difficult or tricky questions, keep it. Don't dwell on it, because if you do, you will eat into your time. Come back to the tricky questions after you've answered the easy ones first. Because when you have answered the easy questions, you have gathered some points. And you will spend lesser time on the easy questions. So you will have extra time to use while answering the tricky questions. But if you start answering the tricky questions first, you would spend excess time answering them. And you are not even sure that you would actually get them. So don't waste your time answering the tricky questions. Answer the easy questions first. Gather points from answering the easy questions. You will spend lesser time on those questions and you will have extra time to use while answering the tricky questions. Now, this will go a long way to help you pass your WAEC examination because you will spend lesser time answering the questions you know and thereby save more time for the questions that appear difficult. Automatically, because you know some questions at a glance, you will spend lesser time on them. And by doing that, you will have saved some extra time for the questions that appear difficult. Now, with more time and careful observation of the difficult questions, you should be able to answer them. For every examination, there is a maximum amount of time allotted to each paper. For WAEC, it is usually 2 hours and 30 minutes. 1 hour for the objectives, 1 hour for essay, comprehension passage and summary section, and 30 minutes for the test of orals. Now, if you fail to manage your time properly, you might end up not answering even the questions you know. Yes, if you fail to manage your time properly, you might end up not answering even the questions you know. So, whenever you come across a difficult or tricky question or a question that is not familiar, just skip it to the next question. It will help you a lot. Because whenever you are dwelling too much on a difficult or an unfamiliar question, you are going to spend excess time and you might not have the luxury of time to answer even the questions you know. So, whenever you see any difficult or tricky question, skip it and move on to the next question quickly. You will have enough time to come back to it after you are done answering the questions you know. Moving on, shade your answers. Don't make the mistake of ticking the answers to your objective questions. Don't make the mistake of ticking the answers to your objective questions because you are putting yourself in great danger. WAEC objective questions are usually marked by computers, so if you don't shade your answers properly, or your answers are not very visible, you may fail those questions. So do not tick the answers to your questions. Shade them properly using the appropriate pencil. Using the recommended pencil, the HB pencil, shade your answers correctly. And that's all for the cheat codes on WAEC English objective questions. Do not forget to subscribe to this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the like button. Do not forget to drop your questions in the comment section. Also, share this content with your friends and loved ones. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.